He brings unparalleled expertise to the forefront of cybersecurity, having previously held pivotal leadership roles at Kroll, JP Morgan, Chase, and the Hong Kong Police Force. So, to introduce our next speaker, we have Mr. Paul Jackson.
Is it my, so you, you know what? That was on my bucket list to walk on stage one day to do a presentation to ACDC. Now, yeah, I know, right? Most of the presentations I give are in very formal environments, and there's no way on earth I could walk on stage to ACDC song. So that's one ticked off on my bucket list. I've only got 20 minutes with you today, unfortunately, so it's going to be a real speed talk, this one. And I'm going to talk about DF and IR, the thunder and lightning, and how and why the hacking community should be more involved. So let me kickstart this by talking about the situation in the Philippines. Now, this is quite disappointing to me because in the Philippines, I struggle to find good forensic investigators, digital incident response and digital forensic investigators. Why is that? And it's not just me who finds this. So there's an instructor I know for training courses who says he's yet to come across anybody in his beginner or advanced classes who has stood out as a good investigator. And this kind of surprised me, and it got me thinking, why is that the case? And is it in fact true? So let me just quickly talk about the profile of what and who makes a good forensic investigator. Is there anybody in the room who's done DFIR, who's done forensics incident response? A few of you, okay. Okay, that's good to know. So it's not just hackers here, right? So, but what makes a good DFIR professional? Now, in my introduction, obviously you found out that I'm a former cop. No, boo in this environment. But yeah, I'm a former police officer. And I was often asked when I was running the forensic incident response team in the police, what kind of person makes a good investigator? Is it the cop who's really good at investigating that you could train on the technology? Or is it a computer scientist or a tech expert who you train to be an investigator or investigative mindset? And the answer is not simple. It's a great question. I don't have a good answer to that one, but what has made me think since moving into consulting and working with the very talented folks I now work with in the pen testing and the red team in the offensive security teams is the value that these guys bring to an investigation. Why is that? Well, let's talk a little bit about what. Well, first, before I do that, I'm going to talk about what DFIR actually is before I drill into what hackers can bring to the table in terms of investigations. So DFIR stands for Digital Forensics and Incident Response. But it's not just one term. This is why I've separated it here. DF is actually very different to IR, right? DF, digital forensics, is more about police work. It's more about, in the private sector, it's more about insider threat, employee investigations. In other words, telling a story from what happened on a computer. So taking that computer, analyzing it, and telling a story about what took place on that computer and who was using it. IR is more about the network attacks, so it's what you guys do. In other words, it's about the hacks. It's about unraveling a hack, and again, trying to tell a story based on the evidence and the available information. So Two different skill sets. IR is more about the net logs analysis, network traffic, etc., using EDR tools, whereas DF is more about using static tools. So when it comes to mindset, does a hacker mindset work in DFIR? Now, this is the interesting question because I'm no psychologist, but when I look at my colleagues who work in the OffSec teams, basically, they are the flip side of the same coin, right? They are the ethical side of the hackers, right? So in other words, you are like the adversaries, but hopefully among this room, you're all doing it for good reasons, for testing security. How many here are doing it for the wrong reasons? Oh, several hands. Yeah, very good. Noted. Okay, but basically the flip side of the same coin, right? And I've noticed also that the team love a challenge, right? You all love a challenge. And I tell you what, I get no better satisfaction than when I do a forensic investigation and I find the smoking gun. I solve the problem. I find who was responsible and I've got evidence of what they did. And it's that moment you go, yeah. And it's a great feeling. But it's the same among the hackers, right? When you get root, you know, I could hear the cheers from the next room because it's something that's, you know, you've solved the challenge. There's also an element of gamer mentality. In other words, you know, when you're going through this, it becomes almost like a game. You know, you've got to win. You want to be the winner. You don't want to let the bad guy win. So it's kind of like a gaming mentality. So those are the parts where it fits. And then comes the problems. So then comes the problems of teamwork, communication skills, and attention to detail. Now, that's not something I find very often in the ethical hacker teams. I've got to be honest, right? Now, communication skills, unless it's yo, bro, and yeah, bro, I got root, then it's not very, you're smiling at me, aren't you, JB? You know what I'm saying, right? No, you know, explaining properly and going to court if necessary and explaining evidence and being thorough with documentation, not so much in the hacker mindset, right? But that's where I'm coming to. That's where the thunder and the lightning come together. Because what I find is that when you have teams that involve traditional mindset investigators and you put them together with the ethical hackers, you've suddenly got the secret sauce. You've got the magic solution to having a kind of perfect team. So this is something that I've discovered in my many years. Thank you for pointing out that I've done so many years of experience. But then that brings me on to where should a hacker begin to learn these skills? Because I could tell you right now, they're in high demand. DFIR skills, it's super high demand. And there's not many folks here in the Philippines that do this. We really struggle to hire and find good people who can do DFIR. But I always get asked, where do I start? A DFIR can be a really expensive business. So if you go to SANS, for example, they'll charge you like $7,000 US for attending their forensic training courses. They're brilliant courses, but they cost a fortune. There are, however, several others that are superb. I'm just going to highlight one or two of these. Brett Shavers, if you look him up on LinkedIn, Brett Shavers, superb in his commentary. Eric Zimmerman used to be a colleague of mine. He builds a lot of open source tools called EZ tools. Eric Zimmerman, EZ. You've got Steve Anson. Steve Anson, anybody heard of Steve Anson? Oh, very good. Have you got his book? Do you know where he lives? He lives just around the corner. Yeah, he lives in Clark. But yeah, in Angeles, I think. But yeah, he's written probably the best book on incident response, applied incident response. Great resources. Then you've got a open source DFIR blog, which focuses again on free tools. And you've also got Harlan Carvey, who's written several books on reverse engineering the Windows registry and getting key evidence from the registry. I don't have time to go in. Unfortunately, last time when I gave a presentation on this, I spoke about the need for a hacker mentality when you are reverse engineering Windows. because Microsoft doesn't want you to know about all the useful artifacts that can help you to tell that story, to help you tell what a user did on a computer. But Harlan Carvey produces brilliant work explaining how this can be done. The most important one, though, probably I highlight here, is Brian Carrier. So Brian is an old friend of mine. He is the author of Sleuthkit and Autopsy, two of the key free open source tools that you can try and you can learn some forensic skills. His blog is excellent, and he is frequently also publishing challenges. So I know you guys all love challenges, and you can find sample images, forensic images, that you can use the tools with to find evidence and solve the challenges. So it's much like a hacker challenge, except you're trying to flip round and try and catch the bad guys. So it's fun. It's a useful way of learning, a fun way of learning, but it does take time. So that brings me on a little bit to THEOS and why I think this thunder and lightning works. You know, why when we come together with the skill sets, you actually get the best results. So THEOS is a small company. You've probably seen us out there, and you're welcome to come and talk to us more about these things. But we really focus just on three key things. Okay, obviously the defense as an MSSP, you know, we do the monitoring, etc. But where we have the SOC analysts. So behind every good forensic team, DFIR team, you need analysts who are going to look through logs, who are going to help you, and also have your back. So when an attack occurs on a client, well, whilst you're investigating, you've got to make sure there's no other backdoors or no other nefarious activities going on across the network. So you need a defense team that's got your back during an investigation. Then you've got the offense team, JV and the folks, who are there to give that hacker mindset, to help the investigators to understand what the attackers were actually doing, what tools they were using, what techniques they were using, and what other dangers may exist as a result of the attack. So having this mindset is incredibly important as part of a DFIR solution. And then, of course, you've got the responders themselves who know how to use the forensic tools, know how to do the report writing, know how to give evidence in court, etc. So, THEOS Cyber, if you don't know about us, you should come and talk to us. We're great, basically. But there's a lot of information on there, and we're happy to talk more about what we do. But I do want to highlight something that's very important. Does anybody recognize this guy? Yeah? There he is. Handsome man at the front, yeah. So one of the goons is obviously plays a very important role with us. But not only that, he also agrees to be a guest on a podcast that we run. We run a podcast called THEOS Cyber. Any of you listen to the podcast at all? Any of you heard of the podcast? Just one or two of you? You should listen to this one, because our famous goon down there goes on to explain a lot about the history of RootCon, about, you know, the work of ethical hackers, about the, you know, the realities of life as a career in offensive security. So it's a great one to listen to. You can Google search it, but THEOS Cyber, Champagne Cyber, that's the way to remember it. We promised not to do the song later. Are we going to do the Champagne Cyber song? We don't know. Depends how drunk we get, right? If we get wasted enough, we might. But yeah, JV on the podcast. Well worth listening to. Oh, and hopefully we're going to get Dex, right? Yeah, to do a recording as well. So watch out for an upcoming recording with Dex. And that's it. That's my lightning talk. That's my speed talk. And you didn't even give me a drink, guys. Yeah, what happened to my drink? All right, any questions on DFIR? Any questions from the audience? Yes,
Any
sir.
questions from anyone?
Yeah, gentleman at the front.
But before the question, of course, a shot for the boss. Woo!
That's not even the good stuff. Did you distill that yourself? Did you make that yourself? Oh.
Better one. Question?
So then going back to your earlier question,
Yes.
the one in the I think first slide, you still have not answered it.
I haven't answered it. Ah, right. That's because I can't. But if subjectively, so the question is, on my first slide, I told you that I was often asked the question, who makes the best DFIR person? Is it the investigator you train with tech skills? Or is it the tech guy you train with investigative mindset? Oh, not that question, no. Oh, oh, sorry, it wasn't that question. All right, that's me assuming. It was the question about why we can't find good investigators in the Philippines. I don't know. I mean, why? You tell me. Why is it? So we got a huge conference with 1,300 people attending an offset conference. How many DFIR conferences are there in the Philippines? 0. Right? There isn't that community here. There isn't that sense. Now, here's my theory as well, though, if you'll indulge me. Right? One of the problems the Philippines has is weak enforcement of the laws. Right? So in many countries, if you have a data breach, if your systems are breached, you have to do a proper investigation. You have to, demonstrate the findings to the authorities. Otherwise, there will be severe penalties. Here in the Philippines, there is strong laws, but there is very weak enforcement. Sorry for any cops in the audience, but there's not the stick, right? So that has a knock-on effect, because it means that companies who do DFIR don't get called in, because companies don't want to waste money if they don't feel that they have to do a proper investigation. So in the Philippines, unfortunately, due to weak enforcement, I think when a company gets hacked, they don't do a proper investigation. They do a fairly shallow investigation. Lack of training, there is that, but I think if there was more impetus to actually have the need for DFIR, then the training would follow, and there would be more, people coming in, emerging in this industry. Yeah, well, as I said, there's plenty of resources out there. I put on the slide before that you can find free training. Unfortunately, some of the more sophisticated training, like from SANS, which is very, very good, costs you around 7,000 US dollars. So it's pretty expensive. But it's a great career path. I really encourage any of you to, want to learn more, come and have a chat with us. But it's certainly something I think the Philippines needs more of. And hopefully the community will evolve, and we may yet see a DFIR conference. Is my time up? Are you kicking me off? Oh, no. Yeah, no, this is great. Any other questions from the audience? If not, you're quite happy to come and see us. We got a booth around the corner, and I'll be hanging out. I promise this year not to sing on the stage. No Calbo song.
You don't have to, and later we'll see.
We'll see. It depends how much tequila you force down me. All right, thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, everybody.
three
Thank you.
rounds for Paul. Thank you so much, Paul.